Defended my sister-in-law from my sister's cruel remarks about her C-section by harshly insulting her, causing family chaos and backlash. I was at my mom's house for dinner and me, my older siblings and my sister-in-law, Sil, were in the living room talking while my mom got dinner ready. My relationship with my siblings is pretty bad due to some background familial issues and the fact that we just don't have personalities that mesh, but we're able to stay mostly civil for my mother. My sister is one of those hyper-religious people that doesn't believe in Western medicine and wants everything natural. My sister-in-law recently got out of the hospital after being there for an extensive period of time following a really messy labor. From what I know, she went into labor prematurely and had to get an emergency C-section as her and the baby's lives were at risk. It was a tough period of time for her and my brother. We were talking about how they have been progressing since they got out, and Sil shared how hard it's been having to bounce back from that traumatic experience to take care of her son. My sister turned to my brother and said had to take the easier route, and she still complains and laughed. My Sil asked what she meant. My sister proceeded to go on a tirade about how she kept trying to help her throughout her pregnancy and she didn't listen, and that's why things turned out the way they did, and that she took the shortcut and has the audacity to complain. My Sil tried to explain that the doctors told her what would be best for her during her pregnancy because of issues she was already having, and that her delivery was the best course of action. My sister would not let up and was gradually getting more insulting, ignoring me, telling her to knock it off. My Sil ended up crying and I was pissed. I turned to my Sil and said, "So are you gonna take the advice of trained medical professionals or one dumb bitch who couldn't get through high school?" My sister lost her mind and started yelling at me, to which I just repeated, "Get a job," over and over again, which made her angrier till she was crying and hurling insults at me. My brother and Sil ended up leaving and my mom came and intervened, telling my sister to calm down and me to leave. Since then I had a heated phone call with my brother because he believes that I should have just kept my mouth shut and let women handle their business. My parents are divorced, left me multiple texts grilling me and calling me a disgrace and whatnot because my sister went crying to him, and my mom texted me saying that she thinks my sister was a bit harsh but that I was way out of line and I need to apologize to her. My Sil texted me and said that she's sorry she caused this situation and that she appreciates me speaking up, but I didn't have to, and that's what's making me feel awful. I'm in a bad state with my family, I always have been, and I'm fine with that, but I don't want to put her in a bad position with them too when she's done nothing wrong. Update 1. My brother, 32 male, has successfully convinced my family that I, 24 meters, am in love with my Sil, 24F, and am trying to manipulate her against him so I can steal her away. My brother and Sil have been married for 4 years. This apparently all came about because a couple months ago her and my sister, 34F, had a big blow up about my Sil's pregnancy, and I defended my Sil against my sister's big tirade. Following that night I received a lot of scrutiny from family, particularly my brother, for interfering in women's business, and I said some not so nice things to him. My Sil also reached out to me and apologized to me for causing the situation, and I let her know she had nothing to apologize for and that I'm here to help both her and my nephew. We ended up having a pretty in-depth conversation about how my sister has treated her in the past. Apparently, my sister moved in with her and my brother for a brief period to help with my Sil's first pregnancy and was really overbearing and constantly ridiculing her choices for the sake of the baby. My Sil unfortunately suffered from what sounded like an ectopic pregnancy and had to have an emergency surgery to have the fetus removed. My sister and my brother apparently think that's the same thing as aborting a baby, and she was blamed for the loss of the child, and from how she spoke she also saw this as a failure on her part. It pissed me off, and I did my best to explain to her the medical reasonings of why what happened was necessary and not her fault, and that my brother and sister are just kind of stupid. She shouldn't feel bad for doing something necessary to save her life, especially because the fetus wasn't even viable. That was the last time she spoke, and I just let her know I'd be there if she needed anything. I guess either she told my brother or he found out from her messages about the conversation and took it as me flirting with his wife. I'll give him the fact that I did call him stupid in the messages, but Simon, thinking an emergency procedure for a life-threatening situation was your wife willfully terminating her pregnancy and making her feel bad about it is fucking stupid. Sorry. He told the rest of my family about how I'm envious and trying to take his wife, which they all believed and are now mad at me. This wouldn't be a big deal to me if my mom 53F wasn't also included in that. My mom is the only one in my family I have good relationship with, but apparently she believes my brother and has called me to scold me about betraying my brother and being shameless along with my other family members. This is all frustrating, but here's the absolute best part about this. The reason I'm estranged from my family is because I'm gay. It is like the thing that fucked our family up. I've very openly been seeing another man for the past 3 years. My brother has also been open about not wanting me around his family because of my unnatural lifestyle. All that just to easily believe I'm in love with a woman? I guess the reason I come here is so that I can understand how this would be believable. I understand my dad and my sister believing this easily. They hate me and probably just want a reason to feel justified in rallying against me, but I can't really comprehend my mother believing it, but maybe I gave her too much credit. At the end of the day, I am very much the outlier of my family on all fronts. I also wonder if maybe my Sil took what I was saying as me taking an interest in her? Maybe I made her uncomfortable, but the most I did was just explain medical things to her so she wouldn't feel bad about her first pregnancy. I don't know, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I've always been at peace with not having my family, especially because my family is full of nutjobs, but I think potentially having to accept my mom is also that way is making me second guess myself. I also don't like the idea that I made my Sil uncomfortable. Update 2. Don't know if anybody is following me, but when I came back to this account I seen a significant number of messages asking me how I'm doing, if everything's alright, what happened to my siblings, what happened to my Sil, etc. I just want to say thank you to everyone being concerned for me. It's real nice, but I promise, no matter how the situation turned out, while not ideal, I was gonna be fine, as I've had about a decade to get used to being ostracized from them and about 5 years building a new, much healthier, less insane life with a new family made of friends and so. I'm not completely alone like I was all those years ago, thankfully. I've had a lot of people guess about me and my family's background and, without getting too specific, I'll just let you know I grew up in a very small fundamentalist Christian town in western Tennessee. My family is full of devout, ye old ways, evangelical Christian nationalists, so it's not a surprise that they're not too psyched that I ended up a gay progressive atheist who studies medicine. I was never gonna be able to fit back in with them once I came out and deconstructed from Christianity, and I think my clinging to my relationship with my mom was just wishful thinking because I thought she wasn't as awful as the rest of them. Let's get to the real point though. Things were honestly really quiet after the whole op. The jerk is actually super in love with my wife and trying to steal her from me thing my brother was pulling happened because I kinda just gave up on trying with any of them because frankly, them believing that made me realize there is quite literally nothing I can do. Cut my losses, blocked them, kept on trucking with my life. Last week though, as I was leaving class, who do I see waiting for me but my mother? Just for reference, I live about an hour and a half away from the rest of the family. At first, I just kept on walking cause I really didn't want to deal with that shit, but she stopped me and asked if we could talk. She didn't really look mad or anything, she just looked really worn out and sad. While I honestly wasn't feeling particularly sympathetic, I was curious so I agreed. She asked if we could go back to my apartment. I said hell no and took her to the park to sit. She tried to open with small talk but I just told her to get on with it. So, apparently she came to let me know that my Sil and nephew have gone missing. My brother is distraught over it and they think I had something to do with it. Now, mind you, the last time I spoke to her was the night we had the conversation about her ectopic pregnancy. She didn't reach out ever again after that and randomly blocked me. Naturally, I'm ready to get up and leave because holy shit, you people cannot be fucking serious, but my mom is pleading to me that if I know where she is I have to let her know because they're worried about my brother, not her, my brother. You might be wondering why I put gone missing in quotations. Well, that's because of what my mother described as the lead up to her disappearance. Apparently, my Sil's older brother came to visit her and my brother without warning. My Sil actually hadn't had contact with him per my brother's request because the last time they saw each other was when my Sil and brother got engaged, roughly 4 years ago. They ended up in an altercation and the dude beat the absolute dogshit out of my brother. I did know about this as my mom was in shambles for an entire week about it and the entire family was mad at Sil for letting it happen. Common theme here. Point is, this dude fucking hates my brother and vice versa, so he wasn't happy about it, but they kept it civil. On the third day of his visit, my brother came back from work to an empty house. Sil, her brother, and the baby were nowhere to be found. Sil's brother's car was gone. My brother didn't think anything of it at first. All of Sil's belongings were still there, including her phone. So he just assumed they went out to lunch or whatever, but after a couple hours there was still no sign of them. Another thing important to note? The guy apparently didn't bring anything with him when he came to stay with them, just him and his car. My brother ended up calling the police and filing a missing persons report the next day, and that's where they are right now, though from what my mom is telling me the police are being weirdly lax about it. Hearing all of that, I feel like it's pretty natural to assume that she flew the coop, kid in hand, with the assistance of her brother. My mom, however, is adamant that something happened to her or that she's being influenced and is in danger, and no matter how hard I tried to make her see the clues that Sil probably left on her own accord, she just wouldn't accept it. She was crying about how my brother is so humiliated and crushed about it and that I have some responsibility over my Sil's disappearance and my brother's current state. At this point, this woman has devolved into borderline scream crying about how I ruined my family's life and reputation while I sit there nodding along and going oh yeah Honestly, the pathetic sight of my mother babbling about how I'm to blame for my family's shortcomings actually helped me get rid of the last bit of affection I had towards her, so silver lining I guess. The little psychotic break my mother was having was, call me insensitive, going on for far too long, and I really had more important things to do. I said okay, well good luck with that, gave her a hearty pat on the shoulder and walked back to campus while she sat there crying. I know, not the nicest thing to do, but there is literally nothing else I can do for these people, and honestly, I kinda just don't even really have the capacity to feel bad for her anymore. It just kinda is what it is. My mom hasn't come back to my campus since then and none of them know where I live, so it's whatever. However, I started getting a bunch of messages from a random number over the weekend following the interaction with my mother. This number I very easily recognized was our original foe, my lunatic sister, angrier and just as unemployed as ever. She basically parroted the same sentiment my mother gave, but in a much harsher and unfortunately, funnier way. Calling me a big pharma retarded AIDS-ridden faggot who destroyed the family did in fact give me a little giggle, I won't lie. Very godly, very loving thy neighbor of her. I muted it, but I didn't block it cause the angry ramblings of a mentally deranged woman in her mid-30s can be pretty entertaining. Anyways, maybe the cops will eventually ask me questions about my Sil, but I got just about as much of a clue as the rest of them. Wherever she is, I hope both she and my nephew are safe. Glad someone was able to get her the hell out of this nightmare of a family, and maybe it'll be a better beginning for her. I have no idea how that'll work with custody arrangements though. Update 3. 2 days after my mom's park performance, I got a call from a block number while I was at my boyfriend's place, elbow deep in a skillet making dinner, and for some reason I picked it up instead of letting it go to voicemail. It was my Sil. She spoke so quietly I thought it was a prank until I heard my nephew fussing in the background and that nervous little laugh she does when she thinks she's about to be scolded. She said she had a few minutes on a borrowed phone and she was safe. She repeated it twice like she knew I was going to ask. I didn't. I asked where she was and she said she couldn't tell me, not because she didn't trust me but because she was told not to tell anyone anything, even me, especially me, because they'll put you in a chokehold if they think you know something. Then she apologized again for all the trouble, and I nearly threw my spatula through the ceiling. She told me what happened without saying any names or places. The short version is she left on purpose. The longer version is she'd been planning it for a while with help she got through a hotline and her brother. She had a bag ready in a hamper with her son's birth certificate, a couple of onesies, formula, a hand pump, her insurance cards, and a little stuffed jellyfish I remembered getting him because I thought it was stupid looking and therefore perfect for a baby. She didn't bring her phone because my brother had found a way to see her location even with everything off, and when she confronted him about it he called it spiritual protection. He'd started sitting in on her postpartum appointments and answering the questions himself, talking over her. He forgot to pick up her antibiotics, twice. He took the car seat base out of her car to clean it and then left it in the garage for 2 weeks. He told her the baby didn't need vitamin D drops because the Lord will provide. Her OB recommended pelvic floor PT and a PPD screening and he told the nurse they prefer biblical counseling. I don't know what the exact moment was, because she kept skipping around it, but I gathered the thing that cracked her open was him taking her debit card just for the week and having the pastor's wife do surprise wellness checks while he was at work. Her brother showed up because she told him to. He's not a saint, no one who knocks someone's teeth loose in a parking lot is, but he listened when she said, "Come now. Don't bring anything. Wait until he leaves for work. We'll leave your phone too." They propped her phone up on the mantle with the TV remote in front of it so the little camera light would blink like it was doing Face ID. They left lights on. Her brother backed out in neutral with the garage door half closed. He put the baby in the car seat before the baby was buckled because that's how scared she was of the noise. They drove to a church that isn't ours, that has an office and a woman who knew exactly what to do. There were codes and handoffs and papers, and she kept saying they had papers ready, like that was the wildest part, not that she'd just left her marriage. She said the cops had already closed the missing person case after they laid eyes on her in person. She had to answer what felt like 1,000 questions with this woman from the office sitting next to her. She knows about the Facebook posts because someone printed them out for her and put them in a file. She knows my family thinks I orchestrated the abduction. She said, "I'm sorry. I know this makes it worse for you," and I nearly laughed because I don't know what the scale is anymore. She asked me for one thing, the screenshots of my sister and my brother calling her ectopic surgery, murder and me saying he was stupid. She said she needed proof of coercive control and documentation of religious abuse, and the way she rolled those phrases around was the most exhausted thing I've ever heard. I told her I had all of it. Of course I have all of it. I hung up and immediately emailed myself everything, then printed it out at the library like a paranoid spy and took it to a UPS store to get it notarized, which feels insane when you're wearing sweatpants, but apparently that's how adult life goes. She called again at a set time the next day, different number, gave me a post office box 2 cities over, and I sent the envelope with a little sticky note that just said "You're not crazy." It felt corny as hell, but my options for normal human comfort are limited when the entire situation is a Hallmark movie written by a demon. The cops did finally call me, a detective with the voice of a man who hates his job just enough to be good at it. He asked when I last saw her in person, months, when I last spoke to her, before the block, and whether I had any reason to think she'd run to me. No, and also I am very gay, detective. He asked about the messages. I told him what I sent. He asked me to forward them. I did. He said what I already knew he was going to say. If she's safe and with her child and there is no court order in place, this is a domestic situation, not a criminal one, and they are done stepping on that rake. He told me if anyone shows up at my campus trying to serve me something not signed by a judge, to grab campus police and tell them to go kick rocks. My sister did not take that news well. She left me 16 voice notes in a row that started in tongues and ended in threats. She said God showed her in a dream that I was in a car with a woman with hair the color of Jezebel and a child strapped in the back, and we were headed to Georgia to enroll the infant in demon daycare, which, not to stoke anyone's fears here, made me laugh so hard my boyfriend came out of the shower thinking I choked. She told me I'd pay, that the men of the church were coming to lay hands on me, that my witch boyfriend would be cast out. I saved all of it. I didn't block her. It is what it is. She called me a pharmakia sodomite in one of them, and now that phrase has been stuck in my head to the tune of YMCA for 3 days. I hate her for that more than anything. Meanwhile my brother went full scorched earth online, long screeds about kidnap and apostasy and betrayal. He posted our family photos, he posted my high school graduation picture with a paragraph about wolves in sheep's clothing, and my mom liked all of it with those little crying face emojis. People from our hometown I haven't thought about in years were in there commenting prayers and pitchforks. My dad texted me, "Return the baby. This isn't you." I didn't answer. My mother called twice, I didn't pick up, and then she texted a picture of my brother sleeping on my parents' couch with a baby blanket clutched to his chest like that would make me turn into the magic gay GPS and ping them straight to wherever she was. 3 nights after the call, my boyfriend and I were walking back from a late screening and there was a flyer taped to the bus stop. It had my brother's face on it and the words "missing wife and infant" and a list of last seen wearing, and I guess he hadn't gotten the memo about liability because it had a number at the bottom and a $1,000 reward. He made it sound like a Craigslist ad for a used lawnmower. Campus security had copies piled at the desk, and the kid manning it rolled his eyes and said, "Guy tried to leave stacks in the library too, we told him to bounce." I asked what he looked like. "Big," the kid said. "Bibly." He also used a megaphone on the quad for exactly 30 seconds before someone with a clipboard explained permits to him, which is the funniest thing anyone has ever done to my brother. My Sil called at the set time again, still shaky but less like she was running her words through a shredder. She has a caseworker. There's an attorney. There's a thing called an ex-parte something that she said went through and puts a temporary pin in my brother's ability to do anything without a judge looking at it. She said she'd filed for a protective order and they'll have a hearing soon. She asked if I'd be willing to do a written statement about what I witnessed and what I was told regarding the abortion accusations and the control stuff last year, and whether I'd be willing to be contacted if the court needed clarification. I said yes. It felt like someone finally handed me the right tool in a house where I've been trying to fix a leaky pipe with a spoon. The day after that, someone slid an envelope under my building's front door with my name on it in ballpoint pen, and inside was a letter from our church discipline committee telling me I was being admonished for sowing discord and inviting me to a restoration meeting. I haven't been a member there since I was 17. I don't even think they can excommunicate me twice. It was almost sweet, like being remembered by your 3rd grade teacher for how often you sharpened your pencil. I put it on the fridge because it makes my boyfriend laugh. The hearing happened quicker than I expected because I didn't sleep the night before and then my phone rang at 9:12 a.m. and it was a number with a state code that made my stomach drop. It wasn't the hearing, it was her attorney. She wanted to make sure they had my consent to include the screenshots, she wanted to verify dates, and then she said, carefully, "We did receive something unusual this morning. My brother had submitted a statement that was clearly my sister's words transcribed by a drunk. It said I had tempted Sil with false promises of wealth, wild to accuse a student of that, and that I had perverted medical knowledge to confuse a woman in her most vulnerable state." He attached printouts of rainbow flags, my boyfriend's Instagram, and a screenshot of my thesis proposal like that's a smoking gun. I laughed, then I got mad, then I sent the attorney the voicemail where my sister calls me an AIDS goblin. The attorney said, very politely, "Thank you. That helps." They did the hearing that afternoon. I wasn't there, but I got a message from a number my Sil has been using that just said "granted." That was it. One word, and my throat finally unclenched. She followed it with a longer one later, after she fed my nephew and maybe cried a little based on the weird stiff sentence order, saying, the judge had granted the temporary order and set parameters for contact and that my brother had to surrender his firearms pending a review, which actually made me sit down. She said she could breathe. She said, I feel stupid saying that. It's not like I was underwater, but she said she could breathe. If you've never felt rage and relief at once, it tastes like a penny. That night, my mom called again and I answered. I don't know why, maybe because I wanted to hear the version she had been served at church that evening and compare it to reality in real time. She launched into it, sobbing and furious, that her son had been stripped of his rights by a liberal judge in a kangaroo court, that a Jezebel spirit had contaminated their line, that I had invoked the state against blood and that God would vomit me from his mouth. I let her finish and then told her, as clearly as I could, that if she ever says the word abortion about an ectopic pregnancy again in front of a woman who almost died, I will physically throw up on her shoes. She said she didn't raise me to talk to her like that. I said she didn't raise me at all. The phone went very quiet. Then she said, like she was admitting something to herself, I don't know what to do when you don't need me. I told her she could try starting with wanting her daughter-in-law and her grandson alive. She hung up on me. 2 mornings later, my brother apparently decided to find me himself. He showed up at my campus at 7:30, which is funny because I have never taken a class before 9 o'clock a day in my life, and sat in his truck outside the biology building like a mirage of bad decisions. He must have gotten my schedule from someone because he stayed through my lab slot, and when he saw me through the glass doors he did this thing where he opened his hands like he was hugging the prodigal back. I waved. He exploded. He started yelling my name, accusing me of theft and sodomy and taking food from his child's mouth by weaponizing the courts. Campus police were already there because this is what happens when a loud man in a truck idles for 2 hours near the pre-med freshman. They pulled him aside. He tried to push past them and they informed him of trespass. He told them he was retrieving stolen property, and one of them, bless his absolute heart, said, Sir, are you claiming your wife and child as property? He corrected himself so hard he almost swallowed his tongue. I went upstairs and taught my recitation shaking, and then I went to the bathroom and laughed until I had to sit on the floor because sometimes your body has nowhere to put fear except in a laugh. When I got home, there was an email from the detective, forwarding me the formal notice that the missing person case is closed and that any further contact from my family accusing me of harboring will be documented as harassment. I printed it out, added it to the fridge next to my excommunication letter. It's turning into a museum exhibit. My Sil's brother called me later that week from a number that didn't show up and thanked me. He sounded exhausted in the way people do when their fight finally returns adrenaline receipts to the body. He told me, in a much calmer voice than I expected, that he had hired 2 women to sit with my Sil at night in shifts, that they were working on getting her into a longer-term housing situation that didn't feel like a holding pattern, that she had her first intake for counseling and came out with swollen eyes and a half smile and said, "It's like someone took the lid off my head." He said my brother had dropped off a letter at his parents' house threatening to file in church court, which made him snort, and he asked me a weird question: does he actually not understand that the ectopic thing would have killed her? When I told him no, he understands, he just believes something else more. He sighed so deep it sounded like a cave. For the first time in months, my apartment felt quiet in the way that means something might be over. Not done. Not wrapped up, but over the hill of whatever the last few weeks were. I made dinner without my phone on the counter. I put my sister's voicemails in a folder labeled evidence because that made me feel like a character in a procedural, and also because I like the idea that one day, if anyone ever asks me, I can hand over proof of what crazy looks like when it dresses itself up as love. I don't know what comes next. There's going to be a real hearing. There will be nastiness. He's going to say unspeakable things, and my mother is going to cry in the front row, and my sister will try to cast demons out of the courthouse vending machine. I will be asked for more statements. I'll give them. My boyfriend will keep reminding me to drink water. I'll keep my head down at school. I'll keep an eye on the parking lot. My Sil will keep doing the minute-by-minute thing, feed, change, breathe, and somewhere in there her body will start to feel like it belongs to her again. I think that's the only part I care about. Oh, and because the universe likes a bit, someone shoved a manila envelope into my mailbox with a single sheet of paper inside. One of those mall kiosk prayer warriors had scribbled out some nonsense about deliverance from pharmacia and tucked in a gift card for Applebee's as a love offering. On the back, in pencil, someone wrote, "Try the shrimp." I didn't know whether to burn it or go get mozzarella sticks, so we did both. We ordered takeout and then lit sage. My boyfriend insists smells like cat pee, and for 20 minutes we ate in my kitchen with the windows open, and no one cried, and no one called me a demon, and it felt like a miracle I wouldn't have recognized a few years ago. If that's sacrilege, sue me. I've got a detective on my side now.